team coverage this morning ahead of one of the most divisive presidential elections in history.
Both Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have pathways to victory, with voters pretty much evenly divided on who should be the next leader of the free world.
Fox 13's Taylor Winkle is in the newsroom tracking early voting numbers this morning.
First, though, let's check in with John Hopperstead. He's keeping an eye on the so-called swing states in play this election. John.
Yeah, guys, and let's take a look at the map here in the West. We're talking about Nevada. That's a state that Joe Biden won by 2%. Right now, the polls are showing a dead heat here. Meanwhile, Arizona's 11 electoral votes, they went to Biden in 2020. The first time a Democrat carried Arizona since Bill Clinton back in 1996. The polling has been leaning red in Arizona now for months, but the numbers have tightened in the last few weeks. Now, in the Midwest, we're talking about Michigan here. Biden won Michigan by 2% in 2020, much closer than expected. Biden also won Wisconsin by less than 1% in 2020, and the polls there are showing a virtual dead heat once again. We move east to Pennsylvania. This may be the crucial one here. 19 electoral votes will be a major prize. Biden narrowly carried Pennsylvania. Trump did eke out a win there in 2016, and with the polls once again showing the race essentially tied, Pennsylvania could be the key to this election.
I think both campaigns would agree with you on that. They would say that that is a must win for whatever path they're going to chart through the Rust Belt or the Sun Belt, that Pennsylvania is that big prize. And again, it's got that really tough Senate race, which, by the way, has moved to a toss-up now, which is good news for Republicans. But my goodness, the polling there is so tight. As you've mentioned, everything is within the margin of error.
And that is why both candidates will make a final stop in Pennsylvania today. Ohio's 19 electoral votes, they're also up for grabs. The Trump campaign is confident they can take Ohio. But North Carolina and Georgia, they are too close to call right now. Voting experts predict these swing states will actually tally up their ballots because of things like new election laws. It's going to take longer. In Pennsylvania as well, election workers are not allowed to start processing mail ballots until election day. So we may not know for quite a few days who wins this election. But let's send it over to Fox 13's Taylor Winkle right now. Taylor, you're looking at voter turnout across the country right now. How many ballots have been turned in so far?
Yeah, well, so far, more than 78 million people have voted. More than half of those early votes were made in person, and that's all according to the University of Florida's election lab. Our Secretary of State reports more than 2.3 million of those voters came from right here in Washington. In the last presidential election in 2020, about 2/3 of the voting eligible population made their way to the polls or ballot drop boxes or even the post office, making for the highest voter turnout of any national election since the year 1900. That's according to Pew. But if you also recall, many states had expanded voter options to make it easier to vote because of the pandemic. The census reports there were more than 161 million people registered to vote across the country in 2022. So we may be on track to beat that number. Here at home, we are breaking down the latest data we have available from Friday. That's when Washington's Secretary of State last updated their numbers. At that point, 47% of ballots had been returned. The majority of those ballots were cast at a drop box. Jefferson County, with 28,000 registered voters, is beating out the rest of the state with the number of ballots returned sitting around 65%. In King, 46% of voters have returned there so far, 45% in Snohomish, and 41% in Pierce. The biggest day for voting so far here in Washington was last Monday. That's when more than 300,000 people cast their vote. We are expecting those numbers to update for us again at 5 o'clock tonight. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Tomorrow, voters will also decide 34 Senate seats and all 435 House seats. Some polls showing Republicans winning the Senate and Democrats taking the House. And just like the presidential race, the numbers are very close. Several races are in battleground states, and Senate races that are being closely watched in Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Montana, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Texas. Some key House races that could shift the balance of power there: Virginia, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, Maine, Michigan, Colorado, North Carolina, Iowa, New York, and California.
And don't forget, Fox 13 is your home for election results. You can bookmark this QR code on your smartphone. It will take you directly to the election results page on fox13seattle.com. The free Fox Local Connected TV app will be streaming national results starting at 4 p.m., followed by local results at 8 p.m. Now on TV, national coverage will air all night long on Fox 13, while local coverage will air on Fox 13.